This is Show Up as a Leader, a show from People Forward Network, helping you maximize your positive impact on the world by becoming your best, fully authentic self.
Hey everyone, it is Rosie. I think you're going to get a lot of really tangible, practical nuggets in this culture geek out session that I had so much fun with Brett Hoogeveen. He is the co-founder of a company called BetterCulture. He is a trained engineer, a former healthcare executive, and they work with clients to, just like it sounds, help them create a better culture. And we talk about so many different tangible aspects about this. He talks about what his definition of culture is, which is super simple and actionable. We talk about a top-down and a bottom-up approach when it comes to culture and what that actually looks like, that regardless of your role as you're listening to this, you have an opportunity to influence culture. And what does that actually look like? You're going to want to listen for the core values con job. And there's a really good discussion we had about that. One of the things you definitely want to listen for, and make sure you go check out the episode page, is a gift that he is giving all listeners. He is gifting you his Culture Kickstarter pack, which has amazing resources for it. So you're going to want to make sure you go to the episode page and click on that. It's just for Show Up as a Leader listeners, and you're going to want to take advantage of it for sure. We talk about attributes of what it means to show up as a leader. We talk about 5 different aspects you should be measuring when it comes to culture. There's just tangible nugget after tangible nugget after tangible nugget in this, where culture can sometimes be kind of nebulous. So many rich resources, whether you are an executive, whether you are a business owner, whether you are an individual contributor or anything in between. We all have an opportunity to show up as a leader and influence culture. And I think you're going to get something wonderful out of this episode. I would love to hear what you do. Take a listen. Brett, I am really excited to have what I think is going to be a geek out session, which I love having on this show. So thank you for being here.
Excited. Yes. Let's get going.
All right. Culture geek out session, people, coming up. So we're going to get into so many different things, which I know is going to be fun, but let's start with just some background. How did you get into this space to begin with? And your company is obviously called BetterCulture. So what does it mean to you to have better culture?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a long road in me starting BetterCulture. I think maybe even I was a bit of a slow learner on just how important culture was, which is painful given my father had built a nonprofit organization, a nonprofit healthcare with about 400 employees in the Omaha area that was being named the best place to work in the city every single year. But here I was as a young, recent college graduate going in a completely different direction in life, just thinking that I'd be happy as a civil engineer working wherever they would take me. And it wasn't until I sort of got my first dose of real professional life that I realized, maybe the place that I work matters a lot more than just what I do. So it was a fairly quick realization after that workplace matters. It matters a lot to employees. It matters to customers. It matters to leaders. I mean, quality of life, quality of business, all those things are heavily impacted by culture. And I don't think a lot of organizations really do it the right way or think about it the right way. And so that was sort of my initial kickstart into this whole world of helping organizations become better businesses and better places to work.
Isn't it something how, like, when you have a personal experience so often, I mean, that you get it at a different level. And I will say that was the same for me. I had 2 different crappy workplace experiences. One was crappy and one was downright toxic. And I just was like, nobody should have to experience this. We spend way too much time at work. And the second time it happened, I was a mom and I was seeing the ripple effects. I'm like, gosh, I hope by the time my son gets into the workforce, movies like Horrible Bosses aren't the norm. Right. but it's just, it is sad that, there's a well known, quote that is, culture eats strategy for breakfast and, operations for lunch and everything else for dinner. And I think that it is true, but I was literally talking to a client a couple weeks ago and someone referred to this as fluff, and I about threw up in my mouth. I was like, "Are you kidding me? This is far from fluff. So thank you for doing the work you're doing and having this conversation with me.
I mean, it's so far from fluff. And one of the challenges that I have is I want to talk to two different audiences all the time. And one of those audiences, I want to talk to business owners. I want to talk to executives. I want to talk to people that have clear financial and business goals and objectives. And I want them to understand that culture is an essential part of your path to achieving those goals, right? And we can dive into that today as deep as you want to go. I love the non-fluff conversation around culture. I am still a civil engineer at heart, right? And I love the math and the numbers and those kinds of things. The other audience that I love to talk to is just employees, people, about quality of life. If you work in a great organization with a healthy culture, your quality of life significantly improves. And that's not just employees, that's managers, owners, it's everyone that operates inside of a business. You can enjoy your life more if you'll build a healthy workplace culture. Now, business success and a high quality life that you enjoy, I think those are two things really worth like working toward intentionally. But I think it makes the messaging hard around culture when it's like, are you talking about business or are you talking about the people? Because it's a win for both.
Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive. So let's go there because I think there's so much synergy in our work. And one of the things that we always talk about in our work is how culture is not the CEO's responsibility. It's not HR's responsibility. It's not leadership's responsibility. It really is everybody's responsibility. And that every single person in every single organization, regardless of size, can show up as a culture contributor or a culture contaminator. Right. And if you have a formal leadership role, you have even a greater influence of the culture, of the employee's experience of the culture. So there's an additional level of intention that you have to make. And so I say all this because so often people talk about that, culture starts at the top. And I used to always say, yep, yep. But then what happens is it's this top down, push down approach, which it's true to a point, yes. And I think it depends on the size and complexity of the organization because what we learned many, many years ago and was the impetus of my previous book, Rehumanizing the Workplace, is that culture actually resides at that local team level. And when you actually do intentional work to improve culture at that team level and local level, just like grassroots organizing, it spreads in a good way and you start to have a ripple effect. And yes, eventually top down is going to make a difference, but you can influence up and get the attention where maybe senior leaders didn't care previously. And now we can have a conversation. So that is my long-winded of there's this debate of is it top down, is it bottom up, or is it a little bit of both? What are your thoughts?
I think you said it really well. And we use the same language at Better Culture, top down and bottom up. See, the reason we call our company Better Culture is that I think that's the goal, no matter of your role, no matter your responsibility, no matter your company. It's not that we can be perfect from a culture perspective, like next week or next month or even next year. It's that we could be better, right? We could do something to make it better consistently and steadily over time. And you can make it better from the top down or the bottom up, right? If you want to achieve nirvana and perfection, well, you're going to have both. You're going to have executives on board. You're going to have everybody contributing, but you can get better either direction, right? An executive top down approach almost by itself to kickstart something can help make things better. Then you're going to have to get everybody else on board as you go. If you don't have executives that see the light on this or that prioritize it, and you're managing a team of 4 people, I promise you, you can make your team culture better. Just the 4 of you or the 5 of you. You can build it from the bottom up. If you're an individual contributor, you can make your team and your culture better. There's absolutely ways that you can do that from the bottom up. And so I think you and I have the same answer that is both or either. But what doesn't work is for someone to show up at work and say, this is somebody else's responsibility. That's the only thing that doesn't work, right? You can't just say, well, it would be nice if, like, no, if you want to see a change, you have a role in that change.
I 100% agree with that. And I think so often it can be easy for people to get stuck in the blame game and be frustrated and say, well, and put conditions on, well, I would show up as a culture contributor. That's using my language, but I would show up as great if this person would do their job. Or, you know what, leadership sucks, or there's all these excuses and conditions around why I don't need to show up better. I don't need to show up as a culture contributor, why I don't need to show up as a leader in whatever role that I have, whether I have a title or not. And I think that's a missed opportunity. And then that's what frustrates other people, and love it. I mean, I don't love it, but I love it. We're on the same page.
Yeah, so I agree, and I would be curious, do you have a definition you use for culture? I have one, and I think it may add a little clarity to this sort of conversation of who has a role to play in culture.
Yeah, go for it. What's your definition?
So the definition we use is culture is the attitudes and behaviors that a group of people comes to expect from one another. Okay. So if you're listening to this podcast and you think about your work group, whatever your role is, close your eyes, unless you're driving, close your eyes and just think when you get back together with your team the next time, your workplace, wherever you go, what are the attitudes and the behaviors that you're going to run into? That's your culture. And a lot of that is local. A lot of that is, well, the culture is going to be like, who do I interact with most? Those people have the most influence on the culture you experience, right? And so every single person who's a part of any group, you can talk about companies and workplaces. This is like neighborhoods and family Thanksgiving dinners. Like if you have the ability to influence the attitudes or the behaviors that other people come to expect, then you can shape culture, right? So you show up in a way where people start to expect something different from you. Maybe you're upbeat, you assume positive intent, you fill in the blank, but you're affecting culture when you change what people expect to run into at work or in whatever workplace, right? And that's what it means to shape culture, in my opinion. What do you think about that?
I love it. I mean, I'm a PhD geek at heart that I always go to if someone has a good definition, I'm going to attribute it. So I always go back to Edgar Schein, the culture guru, late great Edgar Schein, and he talks about it as the underlying, unconscious, hidden beliefs, attitudes, values. So it's that mindset you talked about that ultimately shapes our behavior. So he talks about it goes beyond how we do things around here. So it's the inner operating system, it's the mindsets that shape the behaviors that is experienced. So we use the metaphor of a river where it's like if you're looking at a river, everything that you can see on the surface from how smooth or rough the water is, the riverbed, how wide, everything is really the like environment, right? You step in the river, you feel that current, and that current is what shapes what you see. And so we talk about like the current is really the culture. And so it's just a different way of explaining it the way you did. But I think you're much more simple. But, we like to talk about metaphors and go, but what is that underlying current? To your point, is that current one where people feel valued, where they feel trusted, where they feel that they can contribute, that their work matters, that they matter. So it's what are all the things that contribute to that person or that underlying current being one of engagement, of purpose, of belonging, of, this is a workplace I want to be versus, is it rough water rapids and you're like barely barely keeping your head above float. Like it's a very different experience. So we're aligned. We just talk about it in a very different way.
Yeah, I agree. Is there a level of agency that goes into that analogy? Like, how do I shape the current, or how do I not just be swept away by it, but how do I influence it? I mean, how does that work inside of that analogy?
Yeah, so with that, that's where that gets into like the consulting work that we do and you do with organizations and teams. It's like, okay, so first of all, how do you equip people with the self-awareness? And how do you equip them with a common set of tools and language where they realize the influence they have and they're showing up as a version of themselves that is making a positive impact around them, that they recognize, hey, I can influence even if I don't have the role. So it's really how do you equip them to go, oh, how I show up matters because I'm either completely being an energy vampire for our clients or for my fellow team members or for leadership, or I am actually, that bright spot in the room when I show up, not when I leave.
Love it. Love it. All right,
Yeah.
cool.
So then let's talk about in your experience, what do leaders most often underestimate about building culture?
That is a good question. I think they underestimate consistency, the piling up of small things, right? So if I was gonna give somebody advice, if someone's asking for how can I be a better leader? How can I create a healthier team? How can we improve our culture? Deep down, and I don't blame people for this, Rosie, but deep down, I think a lot of people, they're hoping for a magic pill. They're
Oh
hoping for
God, yeah.
they're hoping for a one time, can we do like one thing that's going to fix this team? And there isn't a magic pill. The magic pill is changing your mindset and the way you show up every day to intentionally, consistently shape and build the kind of culture you'd like to have, right? And so I think, I just got out of a workshop this morning and we were talking about how do you as a leader build pride, build a sense of pride on your team, and how do you help people feel appreciated for the work that they do? And it's not a one time, it's not, well, just here's a great way, here's how to tell them they're appreciated and then check the box, you're done. It takes a consistency as a leader and a mindset that says it's my job to help my team feel proud of what we do and to help them know that the company and I am proud of them, right? And it's a regular, a daily, weekly, monthly, focus to make sure that you're building a sense of pride and that you are helping people feel valued and appreciated. And the clearer that you get that that's your job as a leader, the more opportunities you're going to see to do it. And then the more you're going to do it, right? The better you're going to get at it. And so maybe this is a long answer to your simple question, but I think what's often overlooked is the way you move the needle on pride or appreciation or all these things that we care about in culture. It's not a magic pill. It's just consistently seeing opportunities and executing on them skillfully.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I think I would go a step further that what we have seen where organizations fall flat is that they're not also accounting for the fact that we can have the most well-intended human beings, we can have the most well-intended leaders, but as a species, we are hardwired to fall back into habits and to fall back to the easy button. And we could get into a whole other conversation about that. That's the work that we do each and every day with groups. But where I'm going with this is also why we have to build in very effective, sustainable systems to reinforce what we want like leaders to do. So it's saying, yep, you need to appreciate people, whatever, but what are all the different touch points, all the different deliberate practices, expectations, guiding principles, standard operating procedures, all of these things that are built in, interwoven to how you go about your business, how you go about rewarding people, evaluating performance, everything under the sun that reinforces that that's what you expect as an example from your leaders. Because if that's not there, you can do a workshop, you can do a training and say, hey, you need to do this. They might do it for a couple weeks and then other things become a priority. So if it's not absolutely embedded on a regular cadence where this is how we do things around here from a leadership standpoint to reinforce these attributes about our culture, it'll get away from you very quickly.
Agree. And I want to make sure people don't misinterpret that as saying the company as a whole has to always come to to create processes, that's ideal if there's these scalable processes that trickle down across organizations and there's consistency and commitment and, shared resources and processes where we're all together moving in this direction. What I often see though, Rosie, is I see like one great leader who's kicking butt on their team because they have established some rituals, some consistency things, some cadences, some time blocking, some, they understand, yeah, here's the type of leader I want to be. And I create those processes, those systems just for myself. I can do it in my Outlook calendar, right? I can just time block some things and put weekly reminders and, that's the type of leader who's really going to make progress is somebody who just says, no, I have the things that are really important that I consistently do. And I've created some sort of a system for myself that says, yeah, I'm going to do those things, right? I'm not going to miss the opportunities to make sure my team feels appreciated, for instance.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm glad that you brought that up because when I was thinking about systems, it's a both end because it's the organizational systems, but you're right, as individuals, it reminds me of James Clear's Atomic Habits. Like we have to have these systems for ourselves as well as organizational systems. And I want to just touch on this for a second for everyone listening, because I don't know about you, Brett, but I have leaders that I work with that will somehow get this head trash that there's something like wrong with them if they have to use their calendar to remind them. For example, I have a leader that's really working on trying to better match their intent with their impact, where they actually really care about their team and they want them to feel valued, but they get so stuck in all of the to-dos. So this leader literally was like, this should be a duh. I've been in leadership for a long time. I'm in an executive level position, but they started going back through their calendar and they put in all their team members' birthdays. They put in all their team members' anniversaries because they're like, I forget. And it sounds horrible, but they went in and like writing a note like, hey, reflect back at the week and look at who on my team can I authentically recognized because either for their efforts or for being in alignment with our values. I'm like, that's creating good systems for yourself on an individual level. So I think so often we do hear the word system and we think it's organizational, but systems reside at both levels. So it's it's the theme of the conversation. It's both and today.
Yes. If something matters to you, if there's something that you wanna get better at as a leader, create a system. Don't just think that you're gonna just naturally embody this new thing. A system is how you're gonna get there. I have an example of that. I have a client who they're a CEO, and one thing that they put a good amount of energy into is how they do essentially an executive roundtable once every couple of months with employees from different parts of their company. These are employees that don't know the CEO, and the CEO brings them together for a meeting, okay, for a roundtable. And the CEO, at the start of that meeting, he surprises everybody by kicking off the meeting by introducing them all to one another. Now, these are people that don't know him, and they're shocked that he knows where they grew up, where they went to school, who their supervisor is, if they have kids, he has this information. And it's a way for him to signal, I care about who you are as a person, etc. So they come into the room. He starts the meeting off by introducing the whole table to one another. Now, how does he do that? He doesn't know these people. He has a fantastic assistant who understands this is the process, and the assistant goes and finds all of that information, organizes it, gives it to the CEO. The CEO reviews it for 20 minutes before he comes into the meeting, and he's got a crib sheet to look at as he's introducing them. But it makes a huge impact, Rosie, on those employees that the CEO, how do you know that? Now, he wouldn't know it. He wouldn't. He didn't know who these people were if his assistant wouldn't go do the research project and figure out all the stuff and give it to him 20 minutes before the meeting. Now, does that mean he doesn't care? The fact that he wouldn't know that if he didn't have a system for it? No, it signals that he really cares,
Yeah.
right?
So he's creating a system to help him be able to do that.
Exactly.
I love that. And what a powerful thing. And I think that speaks to there's such a lack right now of mattering. And you see it all over the place and all the different research. Mark Brackett's talking about it, and Zach Mercurio and Jen Marr and all these other people, that we have this deficit right now we have a deficit of mattering turning into anti-mattering, where people don't feel seen. They don't feel valued. They don't feel that, they're contributing, et cetera. And for the people who are listening that are leaders, but again, you can be a peer, you have the biggest opportunity, just something like that your CEO client did, to, wow, what a powerful way to say to somebody, you matter, you're not just a number here. And we take the time to try to get to know a little bit about you as a human being. You're not anonymous, you're not invisible. That speaks volumes in this world where everyone feels like, they're just a avatar on social media in many different ways. So I love that.
The fact that you would take the time to create a system so that you can carry out these types of things, that's how you do show that you care, that you're taking the time to build the system. It's really a rare person that can just remember everybody's birthday.
Yeah. So speaking of systems, and when you think about culture, in the work that we do, we also talk about that you have to constantly nurture and tend to it because it can get away from you. It's an ever-flowing, ever-changing thing. To your point, it's not a check the box, we've arrived, we're done. And if you don't tend to it, you end up with an accidental culture rather than an intentional culture. So how do people need to think about creating a strategic plan that nurtures a thriving culture?
Oh, I love that topic. This is something most companies do strategic planning, but they don't. Oh, you have a strategic plan? Oh, of course. Do you have a strategic plan for continuously improving your culture? No, right? So if you tell me that culture really matters, then why don't you have a plan for how you're going to make it significantly better steadily over time? So we have a process that we use at BetterCulture. We do executive retreats on this, not as many as I would like to do, but working with executive teams to say, are we aligned on where we want to go? And then can we build a plan for how we're going to get there? And that usually ends up like a 3-year plan. Slower the better, honestly. You make more progress if you slow it down and you break it into pieces. We think about culture strategy in 5 parts of the company. And so did you want a robust answer on this one, Rosie?
Yes,
Okay,
of course
good.
we
All right.
do. Because people that are listening, get your pens out or get your keyboard out or whatever you're going to take notes on. Here we go. Here's your roadmap.
So I break any organization into 5 parts, okay? And the 5 parts are, and I'll explain them in a second, but what I want you to understand is all you need to have is a plan for continuously improving each of these 5 parts with regard to how it impacts employee experience and culture. And part number 1 of your business is your executive team, that senior leadership team. This is the pinnacle of that top-down approach to culture building, right? How aligned is the team on the culture they want? How aligned are they on how you're going to get there? How aligned are they on how they are going to behave as a team and how they're going to show up as individual leaders leading their parts of the company, right? So can we make steady and consistent progress on that? Awesome. Let's do it. Okay. So that's part number 1. Part number 2 is your HR and people operations component, right? It's your people processes. It's everything from your employer brand to your recruiting and onboarding and your policies and procedures and your performance management processes and it's all the stuff, what you're asking managers to do with their one-on-ones and your compensation and your bonus structures and your all that stuff relates to how we incentivize people to show up a certain way or not, right? So that's a big bucket. Another bucket is managers, the skill sets, the capabilities of your leaders throughout your system. Do you have a strategic plan for telling me how your managers are going to be better next year than they are this year? Okay. That's how you drive improvement on that one. The 4th bucket, which some smaller companies don't have this bucket, but if you're a medium or larger company, this bucket is called emerging leaders, future talent. What are we doing to identify the types of people who are the leaders we want for the future of the organization and to help them develop and learn and grow and want to stay? Okay. So driving up a process that improves emerging leaders. And then the last bucket that we talk about for planning is, and this is the biggest one, it's a little bit of a catch-all, but it's everyday employee experience for all of your employees. So what can we do to make the everyday work day better for any or all of our employees? And there's so many things that we can do. The old fashioned one is like, let's do casual Fridays, or let's, do a little bit of remote scheduling, or let's have a food truck come once in a while, or let's put some paint on the wall, or let's let people pick the music in the lobby, or there's a bazillion things we could do to just gradually and steadily make the workplace a little bit more enjoyable, a little bit more positive for everyone, right? And so those are my 5 areas that when we do strategic planning around culture, if you can make a plan on all 5 of those areas to get a little bit better consistently, you're going to make a ton of progress on culture. What do you think about that?
I love it. And I think, those are all critical touch points with the culture. And it is amazing how often, we will do strategic planning with organizations and I'll ask, what's your current scorecard or dashboard? What are the things you're measuring? What are you reporting? If you have a board, all of those things. And then we say, so what are your measures for culture, for leadership effectiveness? And they're like, well, we don't have one. So again, it's not in your scorecard. It's not in your KPIs. That seems like a really big missed opportunity. You're reporting on all these other things. You're reporting on financials. You're reporting on perhaps safety. You're reporting on, retention, whatever it might be, or open positions or various stuff like that. But you're not really getting to the heart of what drives a lot of that stuff. So everyone, yeah, here we go. Pay attention.
So one comment on that, I love measurement is great. Measurement is great. My unique perspective potentially on this one, Rosie, is just because we're not able to effectively measure it, I don't think that's an excuse for not doing something to try to improve it, right? Now, it'd be great if we can measure the improvement. That'd be great. But if you're struggling, if you're out there saying, well, I don't know, how do we evaluate manager effectiveness? That is not the easiest thing to evaluate, candidly. That's not an excuse for not having a plan to say, how can we make sure, one of the goals we encourage our clients to take on as a goal, we know you're not going to get there if you're a big company, it's still a good goal. What if every employee in this company reported to a world-class supervisor? Okay. Now, for most organizations out there, if I said, how you doing right now? They'd be like, oh, maybe we're 15% of the way there. We got about 85% of okay, great. Next year, I'd love to hear that you're 18% of the way there. The year after that, I'd love to hear you say 20, 22, 25, 30. This can be a lick your finger and hold it in the wind kind of a sense. But if you just say, that's my goal, is I'm going to try to every year get a little bit closer to saying every employee reports to a world-class supervisor, then I don't care if you can measure it or not. We can feel it and your employees can feel it, right? And that doesn't mean you shouldn't be working on it.
100%. It reminds me of that old saying that, and I'm not going to get exactly right, but it's not everything that counts can be measured, and not everything that can be measured counts. And I think so often when we're talking about culture with organizations, it gets into, well, if it can't be quantitatively measured, but the qualitative matters hugely. And so we have a culture survey that has both quantitative and qualitative, but not every client uses that. It's not appropriate. So we will talk about, well, what are other ways? Like, do you have this sense? What are all the other things that we know are influenced by culture? Like, what are your leaves looking like? What are all these other things looking like? The general mood, complaints, employee relations issues. Like, there's things like, do you have a sense? Like, most people kind of know, are things getting better or not? Are they crappy or they're not? Where do you hear the most complaining and noise coming from? Like, there are a lot of different ways to have an intuitive sense if you don't have the capabilities, or it doesn't make sense for a variety of reasons to formally assess it. You can still figure it out.
I'm going to step outside of what you're normally going to hear from consultants like you and me in this space. Okay. And it's okay if you disagree with this. I know what works to drive improvement in culture, right? And so I have some clients that will tell me they want everything measured. Great. Let's measure it. Like, do you want to provide the measurement? Do you want to use our engagements process, our survey tools? Do you like, let's do that, and let's benchmark and let's follow. And that's awesome. Right. I'm just as happy working with the clients that don't want to measure it, because I know what's going to move the needle. Like, I know what you need to do to get better. And so if you want to measure it and that's really important, then we measure it. It's not we recommend against it. I just don't always insist. Like, I don't start with, okay, what are we going to measure? Because if the client just wants to get better and we think we know how to help, I'm like, let's go. Right. And so we'll feel if it's better 18 months from now, And a lot of times the organizations that prioritize culture the most, in my personal experience, are the ones that care about measuring it the least. Because, like, let's just keep doing stuff that feels like it's working. And I know that's not the most academically rigorous approach, but I find those clients make more progress than the ones that, oh my gosh, we're 3 months into an engagement and we haven't even decided what we're going to measure yet. And it's like, it almost slows down progress sometimes as much as it can help benchmark progress. So maybe that's a counter take, but
I don't think that that's a counter take at all, because like I said, we have some clients that it's part of the whole conversation of, why are you wanting to invest in this? What's going on? Where are you trying to get to? Do you even know where you're trying to get to? How can we help you? Those types of things. And then we talk about, what types of things are you measuring? Is measurement important or not? How will you know? And like I said, not every client uses our culture survey. Not every client has rigor around it, to your point. So I don't think that's controversial at all. I think it's meeting people where they're at. And some people, that stuff matters more because they feel that if they can't put some metrics to it, then the funding for it, or the budgetary dollars, even though it intuitively makes sense, are at risk. Because unfortunately, when markets tighten, I would say
you have to defend every investment.
you
Yeah.
do. And the
Yep.
companies that really don't get it, the first thing they start cutting, if they're big enough, is, OD departments. They start cutting training and development, which is the last thing you need to do in this day and age, and upskilling people and whatnot. So I don't think it's controversial at all. That's my long-winded answer. So here's the other thing that, I mean, we're aligned on so many things. So when you talk about culture and you talk about having systems and you talk about, are we better and where are we at? One of the things that we regularly talk about around having consistency around employee experience and having a better culture is that you've got to know what the heck you stand for. You've got to have a clear purpose, and you've got to have your values that are actually operationalized to be those behavioral anchors that act as a filter for how you make decisions, that are how you onboard people, how you evaluate performance. They're not just words on a website or a wall, which is where most organizations fall flat. You refer to the core values con job, which I am so excited to hear about this. So tell me what this is and how do we avoid this pitfall?
I know this is a sacred cow, right? This idea that, like, of course, if you do culture work, like, core values must be at the center of it. And that's not wrong. However, I think what the core values con job is, in my own words, is that many organizations, by having core values, by pointing to their core values, by talking about their core values, by in every new employee onboarding, spending time on it. If you can't answer this one simple question, are your employees living your core values more today than they were a year ago or 2 or 3 years ago? then I think all that conversation around those core values, I question whether it's really delivering any value to your business. Okay. So that's the con job, is that we talk about these values as if they influence behavior, and they often are not. So what would the alternative be? The alternative would be if you can point to something, it might be your values, it might be anything else, and you can say, as an organization, we have a process, we do something that encourages people to live those values more over time. Okay. That we can shape, again, culture for me is attitudes and behaviors. Okay. If you want a better culture, you have to identify what you'd like to see from an attitude and behavior perspective. And then you have to show me a process where you're going to incrementally shift, adjust, shape those attitudes and behaviors that people show up with every day. What do you think about that, Rosie? What's your experience been around that?
I think that there's a lot of alignment there. And I agree, like you can have organizations where it's smoke and mirrors. We talk about here's our core values. And here's what we've seen with some of our clients, that new employees get really excited. Like, oh yeah, that's what brought them. Everything that they saw on the website, everything that they heard in the recruiting process, everything even in a new hire welcome or new employee orientation, they're super excited about this culture. And then they get to their respective location, or they get under their respective supervisor, and they're like, what the hell was I sold?
Right. Yeah.
Because this is not what is happening. And this is where, like, if you measure it, like new hire failure rate or exit interviews, but we see like there is a big disconnect between who you say you are and the actual lived experience. So I don't disagree with that at all. And that's where I get into, like, for example, with one of our clients, talk about a starting point. They're like, look, we try to be clear about our values, but they're an industry that's very spread out all over the place. And it's a really difficult industry. So what we're starting with is we're going to go back to the basics with how do you actually create some processes and some consistency with how your managers interview people for alignment with the values and the culture, so that you're bringing on the right type of people and having them, here's the expectations from the get-go. That's just one little like thing. And then how do you then have accountability and feedback conversations, that it's not just, well, this person did their job, but they are toxic and an energy vampire and behave like a butthead and piss off everybody around them, right? But we're going to ignore them because they're the best fill in the blank salesperson, blah, blah. Like, no. Are we holding alignment with our values and what we state our desired culture is at the same level of importance as results? And so those are just two small examples, but you're right. It doesn't do any good if they are just like smoke and mirrors, versus are we actually equipping people to live it, to be accountable to it, all of those things. And that's the next step, where I think when we go back to have you truly operationalize your values, that's where I think a lot of organizations, you're right, they sit in that con job where we talk about it. No. Do you have a process to actually reflect on how well are you doing and how are you going to get better?
So here's how you pull back the curtain a little bit on whether or not in your organization, especially if you're an executive or if you're an HR leader or if you're someone that is closely tied to your core values, ask yourself this series of questions. Okay. So to see if you're falling victim to the core values con job. Okay. So start with, are my values, are they behavioral? Do they describe actual behaviors, or are they somewhat obscure, hard to, communication? Like, great. That's hard to nail down. Like, if you have a core value that says smile, now very few companies do, but if you have one that says smile, I guarantee that's pretty easy to see if people are doing it or not. It's very behavioral. Okay. Let me choose one of my favorites, which is assume positive intent. I love that as a type of a core value that describes a behavior. Okay. So number one, do your core values describe a behavior? If they don't, I'm going to tell you, you're already at a handicap, because culture is behavioral and you're trying to shape behavior to shape culture. So we got to have something that's behavioral. Once you figure that out, ask yourself this: do we effectively evaluate people on how good they are at our values? Like, in some process, do we actually say, yeah, Bob, you stink at these, or Mary, you're amazing at these three? Like, do you have some some form of even informal assessment in your evaluation processes that give people some feedback on, are you living the values or not? And a lot of companies, as you know, Rosie, would fail already right there. They would be like, no, we don't incorporate that into our evaluation processes. I'm like, if you're going to help people live your values and grow, isn't self-awareness like the first goal of improvement? You got to create some self-awareness. Then, if you want to make progress from there, you'd have to tell me, okay, what can the organization or leaders do if once you identify where somebody is on your values to help them get better? Do you have a process for that? Do you have tools for that? Do you have programming? Do you have what resources has the company created to help people live your core values more fully? Most companies aren't doing so great on that, right? What sorts of reinforcement mechanisms? How can you measure progress? How can you, if we were serious about core values, if we said, no, 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 like if we can get our people to live these core values, that will do something for our company, then we should treat them as a continuous improvement process, as a behavior change process. And most companies just aren't doing anything close to that.
100%. I think that the latest research I saw is less than 10% of organizations actually what you're describing is operationalizing it. It's, do we have very clear behavioral anchors? We know when we're in alignment, we know when we're out of alignment. We are onboarding for it, we're measuring it along the way, we're using it for promotion decisions, like the list goes on and on. And yeah, I think that we fall short because then it's, oh, then I have to have an uncomfortable conversation, or now I have to do this. Oh, now you're right. So it sounds good in process, and then somewhere along the journey things get stuck and stalled. So yeah, 100%. So in the work that we do, and even this show called Show Up as a Leader, we believe that leadership never has been about a title or role, that it is about how we show up. And that, yes, if we have the formal title and role, we have to be very intentional because of the influence we have. But every single one of us has an opportunity to show up as a leader in our lives, at work and outside of work. So I'm curious, when you hear the phrase show up as a leader, what does that mean to you personally?
Oh man. What it means is, so two answers. One is from a top-down leader perspective, because I have those two lenses. We have these 7 principles of leadership that we believe in deeply at Better Culture. And the short summary of those is that's what it means to be a leader. Okay. And so my short overview of those is it means to always be focused on mission, culture, and excellence. It means it's my job to always be building a sense of pride and to make sure that employees know that the company is also proud of them, that they feel appreciated. It means it's my job to help my employees be successful at work and in life. It means it's my job to protect the right of my good employees to work with other good employees and not let them hang out with the energy vampires that you described for too long. It means it's my job to deal effectively with conflict. It means it's my job to make decisions effectively, involving the right number of people and communicating around those decisions. And it means it's my job to make work enjoyable for everybody involved. That's what my job is as a leader, regardless of whether or not I have the title. If I can focus on those 7 things, then I'm doing my job as a leader.
I love that. Yeah, we refer to those with our clients as guiding principles of leadership. What are those non-negotiables? Like, what is the actual work of leadership? It's these things. And if your calendar is not prioritizing those, like for you, you're 7, if it's not prioritizing those each and every day, then something's amiss.
And the piece before that, Rosie, is like, if you can't answer that question, what does it mean to be a leader to you? That's a great place to start, right? And you can use Rosie's curriculum and framework and guiding principles. You could use what we have at Better Culture. There's a lot of good answers to that question of what does it mean to be a leader? If you don't have a framework you're working from, you're at a big disadvantage. You have to start with a sort of a coherent vision. What am I trying to do here? In addition to like manage the budget and do the, get projects out the door, what is my actual responsibility as a leader of people? And if you don't have a clear answer to that question, I suggest you go get one.
100%. So this might be a good time to put in a plug. I know that if people go to the episode page, you are offering them your Culture Kickstarter pack. Give us a little sneak peek of what's in that and how people can use it based on what we're talking about.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Thank you. So we talked about a lot of different things, culture related. One area that we didn't get into a lot is exactly what does it look like to build culture from the bottom up, in Better Culture's language, at least. We've spent the last couple years building and launching a product called our 20 Tenets of Culture. It's 20 attitudes and behaviors that if people will embrace, it's good for the employees personally, it's good for teams, and it's good for culture. What we've done, it's a really big suite of tools and a kick butt resource. What I want to give all of your listeners is a sample pack of that. It's everything you would need to run 2 awesome team building courses with your team. It's got assessment, like videos, coaching videos, discussion guides, exercises, like a bunch of cool stuff that can help you build healthier teams and cultures from the bottom up. And so if listeners will just go to betterculture.com/show up as a leader, you'll get a custom landing page just for your listeners where they can find that. And I would really, really, if you can find a better free team building resource out there, I want to know about it.
I love that you are giving that gift, and we are going to put that link for everybody directly in the episode page too. But thank you for giving everyone that gift. I love gifts for people. It makes me happy. So we're going to get a little bit more deeply real here for just a moment. So what is something you're currently wrestling with as a leader that you don't think gets talked about enough?
The only good answer I have for that for you, just being real, and I don't mean to take us down an AI path. I'm worried that I run a small business, and there's so much that I feel like I'm missing opportunities to use AI effectively to pull my different systems and processes and meetings and planning and other things together. It exists in different systems, but for me, I have so many conversations, team meetings, things with my team where it's like, oh, we just talked about 17 good ideas. Did we have a meeting recorder running that can integrate with, and it's like, nope. Okay. Well, shoot, I know I'm only going to remember like one of those. Right. And so I'm just starting to see, by not using some of these AI tools and being able to link them all together, how much missed opportunity I have for my own business. And I know there's risks associated with all that too, but I'm really trying to figure out how can we start to not let as many things use modern technology to not let so many things slip through, like good ideas that go forgotten.
You're in good company. I mean, I don't care what size business people have. Everyone is trying to figure out what is the right balance of where you use it to help you be more effective and focus on the things and take some of that lift off, or I don't remember. And where is it like you start to sound like everybody else and everyone can tell that like your AI bot is sending your emails and it's not human and nope, just here we go. So
100% in the same boat. I agree.
yeah. Well, so then that's probably a good transition to the question that I ask all of my guests because we are all deeply human. And no matter how much work we do on ourselves, we get in our own way sometimes. So, Brett, I would love if you would share what is a self limiting story that you still tell yourself sometimes. And when it shows up, how do you move beyond it so that you can show up as a leader in your life and have the impact you want?
Because I grew up working in a nonprofit environment, a mid-sized company, and then I started my own business. A self-limiting belief that I've had in the work that I do is that, well, maybe at larger scales, at a Fortune 500 company, maybe they've got systems, they've got processes, they've been to some training put on by some, huge company that gave them secrets that puts them ahead of me on this leadership and culture stuff. Oh, maybe they went to Harvard and an MBA program, or something that they learned that would make what I do kind of seem overly simple, right? And I'm overcoming this belief because increasingly, when I try to have conversations about the stuff we do that's related to culture with really successful, large organizations, folks that have been to every highfalutin seminar and workshop out there, they still struggle to answer simple questions like, well, what's it mean to be a leader? What are you trying to get done culturally? Do you have a strategic plan for how you're going to make that better? Like, they don't. And so what I have learned is the same things matter to people when you're thinking of culture building. What people want from a business, what they want from a job, what they want from what engages an employee is like the same thing universally, regardless of industry, regardless of size. Like, people appreciate certain things from an employee-employer relationship. And if you can get better at those things, you're going to get better at building culture.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, right. It's the, oh, who am I? But it's like, yeah, no, here we go. All right. Are you ready for quick questions?
Let's do it.
Fill in the blank. Living authentically is
Not overthinking things.
nice. When the world is presenting an opening, but you don't feel like showing up as a leader, what do?
I say it's okay not to show up that way.
I like it. What is something people would be surprised to know about you?
I don't think I could surprise you too much. I got nothing on that one. How about this? I like jumping on my backyard trampoline with my kids. How about that? There you go. I didn't have a trampoline growing up. I always wanted one, and now I jump on it all the time.
There you go. You're a trampoline jumper. There we go. What is your favorite go-to movie?
Oh, Probably Goodwill Hunting.
You like apples? How about them apples?
Yeah. How do you like them apples? That's just
I
such a
love
good
that
movie.
one. All right, what's your go-to song?
Stairway to Heaven. If I have to pick one, I do like a little old-fashioned Led Zeppelin. Let's go with that one.
Okay, that is a good one. Wasn't it Wayne's World? Like, no Stairway to Heaven? I don't even know. Okay.
Yeah. I know Jack Black's done a lot of good work lately promoting that as the best song of all time. So I'll go with that one.
Okay. What is something you can't live without?
A fountain soda from the gas station every once in a while.
What kind of soda do you get?
So, okay, I'm trying to make sure everybody understands this. You can get 80% of the flavor and 50% of the calories if you'll mix, full calorie Coke and Coke Zero, or Pepsi and Diet Pepsi. Like, that's why I like to go, is because I put a little splash of lemonade, a little splash of orange in there, and I mix it like half and half. It's wonderful.
You make your own concoction. All right.
Yeah.
There we go. So besides your self-concocted gas station soda, what is something in your ordinary daily life that makes your heart happy?
I'm a family guy. I like hanging with my kids, playing games, playing basketball, whatever that is, just hanging out with the family, watching a movie, snuggling on the couch. That's my go-to.
I love it. I love it. And what are you grateful for right now?
This is going to date this specific interview, but I'm grateful that the Nebraska Cornhuskers men's basketball team are in the March Madness tournament, and I hope that they get their first win ever. They're the only Power 5 team that has never won an NCAA tournament game. So if they have lost in the first round to Troy, when you hear this, just know I'm still crying about it.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, we could talk forever, but I have one closing question for you, Brett. If you could challenge leaders everywhere to practice this one behavior that would create more human workplaces and equip everyone to show up as a leader, what would that be?
Be a PR agent for your great employees. Make it your job to start conversations to let people know how amazing the people you work with are. If you will just make it your job to let your spouse, your friends, anyone you come in contact with, just brag about your great people all the time. It'll have a massive impact. People will love you. You'll be a culture builder everywhere you go.
I love that so much. Very, very wise words. And so once again, people go to BetterCulture / show up as a leader, and that's where they're going to get your culture Kickstarter pack with all the goodies. Well, again, we'll put it in the show link. So thank you for that gift for our listeners. And thank you for this conversation and all the work you're doing. Much appreciated.
Oh, you're doing amazing work. Thank you for having me on. And this was a blast.
I'm Rosie Ward, and this is Show Up as a Leader. To learn more, head over to peopleforwardnetwork.com and, of course, hit that follow button.